Hey, this is Math with Mr. C, and you've tuned into 19.2. This time, we're doing circle graphs. Last time we did bar and line graphs, now we're on to circle. Here's your complete homework. I would consider this part the most difficult part of the homework, this graph. I see, let me zoom in on that. I see that each time stock B is used, then we use the circle, such indicated here, circle, 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 circle. Each time stock A was used, we used a square. And specifically it said to use a double line graph. So that's what we made here. They chose to do a line because there's dates or time passing. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. So here's our example for circle graphs. How are data represented in a circle graph? A survey asked 500 people for their favorite source of news. And here's our favorite source of news, and they broke it down. The results are shown there. How many people said their favorite source of news is television? It's interesting that on this it doesn't say out of 500 people, so I'm glad that I read the word problem beforehand. But they asked how many people named television as their favorite source. So I see that that's dark blue on the key, and dark blue is right here. And it says that 55% of 500 people named television as their favorite source. But they didn't ask for percent. They said how many people. So do I know how to find what 55% of 500 is? Well, first, our vocab word today is circle graph. It shows how different parts of a set of data compare to the whole set using a circle. This is also called a pie graph. Circle graphs often display the percent that corresponds to each part of the whole. So the graph shows that 55% of 500 people surveyed chose television with a clue word of square. What we would do to find 55% of 500 is 55% of 500. I could think of this two ways, either here, 55% of 500. Glad we worked on that beforehand before we went to chapter 19. And then we can simplify here, or you could think about it as 55% of 500. Why is this 55%? Well, this is 55 hundredths, and this is also 55 hundredths of 500. When you multiply that out, you get 275, which means that 275 people chose television as their favorite source of news. Here's your vocab note. Please write this as well as making a graph, writing your information here. We will move on in 3, 2, 1. So here is example 1. For example 1, you are not drawing any circle graphs, but you are going to write the work for each problem. 1 and 2 here count as number 1. So let's read the question. How many people chose radio as their favorite choice for news? Now we're back to the first problem. How many people chose radio as their favorite choice for news? 16%. There's two ways I can do this. We could think of that as 16% of 500 or 16% of 500. When we multiply that, let's find out what we would get. You can use a calculator for that. I would simplify these and these two. I get 16 times 5, which I know is 80. 80 people chose radio as their favorite choice for news. Now, along with number 1, which source of news was the least popular in the survey? I'm looking at the pie graph for the lowest percent. I see 4. I'm looking for pink. That's magazines. And in my notes, I wrote magazines were the least popular. Alright, this number 3 here is actually a number 2. Anything I write in this box should be written in your notes. Looking at this circle graph, and on another example, which is right here, in a sample of 1,000 students, so this is 1,000, about how many would you expect to get home between 4 and 4:30 p.m.? Which color is between 4 and 4:30? Oh, they don't have a color for it, but 4 and 4:30 lies in this purple space, but it's not the whole time. It's actually half of the time given here. So I would think that it would be about half of this. So the question says, about how many would you expect? So this was 47.5%. I'm going to round that to 50%. Those are the people that get home between 4 and 5, but they want to know between 4 and 4:30. So half of that is 25%. And what's 25% of 1,000? I could do that this way, or like this. I think it's easier to do this most of the time. 25 times 10 is 250 people. And that's my answer. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. For example 2, you do not need to write the questions, but please write out the answers to 1 and 2, and I'll come back with the answers. Showing you the answer to number 1 in 3, 2, 1. So the amount of people who chose TV was 55% of 1,000, shown here. The way that this ratio is set up, right here, X is equal to the number of people who chose TV, 55%. See how they're equal? They're both numerators. X is 55%. Over here is percentage, and over here is people. And 500 is equal to the whole 100%. 500 is the total, and therefore how many people equal 55%. So it works. And for number 2, no, all circle graphs add up to 100% and cannot go higher. For independent or partners practice, please use this graph right here, circle graph, to answer only 2 problems. Showing you the answer in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2 ways I could have set up the first question. I looked at how much was budgeted for food. I saw it was 22%. I can write that 22% of 2,300, which I got up here, that this total is 2,300. Or you could type it this way in your calculator. Simplifying, 23 times 22 is $536. It asks how much money. Estimate the amount of money the family spends on other expenses. What do they mean by other? So this is number 2. I see other right here in blue, 8%. So it says estimate, so I'm going to estimate that to 10% of 2,300. Simplify. And 23 times 10. They spend about $230. Thank you for watching this video. Please click the link below for Khan Academy Video and Practice, and then choose one of these 2 options. You're awesome.